This design and its expected price are doing something not many brands in Europe dare to attempt. It's not trying to beat the market, it's trying to quietly reset expectations. A car that looks like a futuristic concept straight out of Milan, yet aims for a price below 30,000 euros. That sounds like good news. But when something looks expensive and is priced unusually low, the real question isn't whether it's a bargain. It's this: what exactly had to be cut to reach that price point? And this is where things start to get interesting. Hyundai isn't positioning the Ioniq 3 as a budget car. Instead, they present it as a design-driven product, something shaped by Milan-inspired aesthetics, minimalist thinking, and modern technology. So, emotionally, it sits alongside cars that cost significantly more. But technically, that's something we need to verify layer by layer. Welcome back to Drivenomics. We don't buy cars based on feelings. We base our decisions on what's underneath the surface. And today, we're going to break it down step by step. Starting with the one thing Hyundai wants you to notice first, the exterior. Because if the design is convincing enough, everything else becomes much easier to overlook. But here's the real question. Is this design genuinely functional or just very good at playing tricks on your eyes? Step inside the Hyundai Ioniq 3 and one thing becomes immediately clear. This interior wasn't designed to impress, it was designed to serve. The space follows an open, flat, and extremely minimalist layout, with almost no unnecessary details or decorative layers meant purely to show off. Everything has a reason to exist. At the center is a 14.6-inch display running Android Automotive, but the key point isn't the size, it's how the system actually performs. With Google Maps, Google Assistant, and built-in apps fully integrated, the car doesn't need to borrow your phone to feel smart. It operates independently. And more importantly, it works properly. The interface is clean, responsive, and doesn't force you to relearn everything from scratch, which is something many European in-car systems still struggle to deliver consistently. But the Ioniq 3's interior isn't just about the screen. The real story lies in the materials. Hyundai calls this a sustainable space, using recycled components, bio-based fibers, and environmentally friendly surfaces, which sounds great on paper. The real question, though, is how it feels in everyday use. These surfaces don't follow the typical glossy or traditionally premium approach. Instead, they lean toward a softer, slightly raw and neutral texture, fully aligned with that eco-focused direction. And that creates a very different kind of experience. It's not premium in the familiar sense, but it doesn't feel cheap either. It sits somewhere in between, and that's clearly intentional. So the more relevant question isn't, does it look good? It's whether it fits the way you actually use your car every day. Because materials like these aren't the kind you just wipe clean instantly, and over time, they age in a very different way compared to leather or conventional plastics. Hyundai has clearly prioritized sustainability and a modern feel over absolute practicality. That's not wrong, but it's not for everyone. When it comes to space, the Ioniq 3 performs quite well. A 2,680mm wheelbase, combined with the flat floor typical of EV platforms, gives the rear seats enough room for family use and daily driving. The seating is comfortable, but not in a body-hugging way. The seats don't lock you in, and the cabin doesn't force you into a fixed driving position. And that says a lot about this car. It's not designed to excite you behind the wheel, it's designed to live with you. And when you step back and look at the whole picture, everything starts to connect. An exterior optimized for aerodynamics, an interior optimized for space and digital experience, all pointing toward one shared goal: efficiency. Not efficiency in terms of acceleration, but efficiency in energy use, running costs, and how the car fits into your daily life. And that's exactly why the next part matters the most, the battery, and everything about how this car operates. The first time you look at the Ioniq 3, you quickly understand what Hyundai is trying to do. They're not aiming to make a beautiful hatchback in the traditional sense. They're trying to create something that feels more like it belongs to the future than the present. The parametric pixel design language is still here, with small, square LED elements arranged with intention, giving off more of a circuit board vibe than a conventional car. But that's not really the point. What matters is this. Everything you see is shaped by aerodynamics. A drag coefficient of 0.263 isn't there just to look good on paper. To achieve that number, Hyundai had to make decisions most people won't notice at first glance. A longer, lower hood than what feels visually natural, a more steeply raked windshield to reduce pressure zones, flush door handles to minimize turbulence, and then there's the rear, where things start to get controversial. From the side, the rear end looks slightly compressed, not in a sporty coupe way, but more like it's been pushed downward to manage airflow more efficiently. So if you're expecting a car with strong presence, something that stands tall and carries visual weight, this isn't that kind of car. It sacrifices that sense of visual solidity in exchange for aerodynamic efficiency. And this is where it gets interesting. This design isn't trying to win you over instantly. It's trying to grow on you over time. It's like a new piece of tech that feels a bit strange at first, but the more you look at it, the more you realize every detail has a purpose. That said, not everything is perfect. The wheels, depending on the version, are clearly designed for airflow rather than visual appeal. Look closely, and they resemble aerodynamic discs more than proper sporty alloys. That's great for range, but visually, it takes away some of the excitement. Ground clearance also sits right in the middle, not low enough to be a problem in the city, but not high enough to give you that SUV-like stance, which tells you exactly what Hyundai is doing. They're keeping it honest. This is, at its core, an urban hatchback. And if we go back to the original question, is this design trying to trick your eyes? The answer is no, but it is doing something more subtle. It gets you to accept certain compromises before you realize they're there. Because when a car looks modern enough, you naturally stop questioning what's underneath. And that's exactly why it's time to step inside to see whether that living room on wheels Hyundai keeps talking about is actually real or just marketing. And this is where everything starts to reveal itself. The battery. Hyundai has switched to LFP for the Ioniq 3, and at first glance you might think, that's fine, it's more durable, cheaper, and degrades less over time. That's true, but that's only half the story. The other half lies in how this type of battery behaves when you actually drive the car the way people do across Europe. LFP has a very clear characteristic. It performs well under low to moderate loads, but once you start sustaining higher speeds over longer periods, efficiency begins to drop in a way you can actually feel. Not a sudden drop, more like it drains faster than you expect. Now combine that with the rest of the system. 400 volts, 100 kilowatt charging. These aren't bad numbers, but they create a very clear ceiling. In the city, the car feels light, smooth, and adequately powered. On regular roads, it's still perfectly fine. But once you push it onto the Autobahn, things start to change. Acceleration from 120 to 160 kilometers per hour no longer feels effortless. It can do it, just not comfortably. And more importantly, energy consumption rises quickly, which leads to the second consequence. You'll need to charge more often, and this is where the 400-volt system starts to speak up. While other Hyundai models became known for ultra-fast 800-volt charging, Hyundai has gone with a more cost-effective solution here. The result is straightforward: longer charging times. Charging power drops more noticeably after several consecutive fast charging sessions, and long-distance travel gets stretched out, not because the car is weak, but because you're spending more time waiting. And this is something many people won't notice right away. The Ioniq 3 doesn't frustrate you in the first 10 minutes. It makes you think after 3 hours behind the wheel. That's the difference between good specifications on paper and real-world experience. To be fair, though, Hyundai is not hiding this. They've clearly designed the car to optimize production cost, efficiency under standard conditions, and an accessible price point. In other words, they're playing a very deliberate game, sacrificing high-end performance to achieve mainstream efficiency. And if your usage is mostly urban commuting, daily driving, with the occasional trip that isn't time-critical, you'll barely notice any of these limitations. In fact, it might feel perfectly reasonable. But if you're the kind of driver who regularly hits the Autobahn, maintains high speeds, and does frequent long-distance travel, this is where you start to realize something. This car wasn't designed for you. And that's not a flaw, that's a choice. The real issue is, Hyundai doesn't make that distinction very clear. They market it as a car for Europe, when in reality, it only fits part of Europe. And once you understand that, the final piece of the puzzle starts to matter. The price. Because all of these trade-offs only make sense if the price is convincing enough. And now we come back to the original question from the start of the video. The design looks good, the tech feels modern, but does the price actually shake up the European market? Roughly 28,000 to 31,500 euros. On paper, this sits right in the zone where EVs start to feel accessible. But once you factor in everything we've just discussed, the price is no longer simply cheap. It becomes a calculation. Where exactly did Hyundai cut costs to reach this number? And in return, what are you actually getting? Compared to the Volkswagen ID.3, you get a fresher design, smoother software, and a more obvious sense of modernity. But you trade off high-speed stability, that solid German driving feel, and most importantly, charging performance on long trips. Put simply, the ID.3 feels like a machine engineered for sustained load. The Ioniq 3 feels more like a device optimized for short-term experience. Two philosophies, neither right or wrong. Now, compared to the MG4, the story shifts. The MG4 may not look as polished, but it's quickly becoming a benchmark for price-to-performance value. The Ioniq 3, on the other hand, takes a different path, less mechanical, more experiential. In other words, you don't buy it because it's the most powerful, you buy it because it's the easiest to live with. And this is where it needs to be said clearly. From my perspective, the Ioniq 3 is not a car for driving enthusiasts. It's also not a car for frequent long-distance drivers. It's a car for people who commute daily, spend most of their time in urban environments, want an EV that looks good, feels modern, and is easy to use without paying too much. If that sounds like you, then the Ioniq 3 makes a lot of sense. But if you expect strong performance, ultra-fast 800-volt charging, and effortless high-speed cruising on the Autobahn, you'll start to notice its limitations fairly quickly. And that leads to the most important conclusion of this video. The Ioniq 3 is not a complete breakthrough. It's a carefully calculated compromise. A car designed to hit the right price point, not to deliver maximum performance. So the final question isn't, is it good? It's, does it fit the way you actually use your car? If you accept what Hyundai has chosen to cut, you'll likely find it worth the money. If not, you may always feel like something is missing. Now it's your turn. Do you choose a car that's good enough at a great price, or one that costs more but asks for fewer compromises? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Driveonomics, we don't sell cars, we help you avoid buying the wrong one.